Live from New York, it's Ask an Engineers.
Hey everybody, welcome to Ask Engineers. We've got a full house tonight. Again, we have two special guests on the show, both of whom are engineers, or at least will be engineers online for today. So we have three engineers for you. Triple the engineer. I'm Lady Ada, normally the engineer. With me is also Mr. Lady Ada on camera control. We also have Alicia Gibb. Is that your name?
Yep.
Okay, okay. Alicia Gibb and Mr. Gibb.
That's right.
I don't know. He does some electronic stuff on the side, but he's just like Alicia's guy. Whatever.
Arm candy.
It's cool.
Decoration.
We got an exciting show tonight with all sorts of fun stuff, lots of blinkies, some good news. Tell them what's on tonight's show, Mr. Lady.
On tonight's show, we have Alicia, a guest from the Open Source Hardware Association and more. Nate, the CEO of SparkFun Electronics. Tonight's code is going to be Open Source Hardware, OSHW, 11% off tonight. I'll tell you why. We'll talk about the show and tell. People showed up and showed some stuff. We will talk about all sorts of interesting things in the world of open source hardware, the Foundation, the Summit, SparkFun, memories. We just had SparkFun on the show not too long ago. Talk about SparkFun building some stuff. Recap of the Hardware Hangout. Talk about Mo's Resistance. It is live. A little bit about 3D printing. We'll have the new products. We'll answer your questions from a trivia question, all that and more on Ask an Engineer. Yeah. Okay. First up. Hi guys.
Here.
How's it going? All right. Got to pay some bills. Got to pay some bills first. Open source hardware, it's OSHW. That's the code. And we're doing 11% off tonight. Anything in Adafruit store, anything that's in the Adafruit store in stock, because SparkFun, which is an open source hardware company, just celebrated 11 years.
Oh, except for software and gift certificates. We have to say
software and gift certificates. So
you can't get discounts. Sorry.
Not on EagleCAD, not on gift certificates.
Not allowed to. So don't email us and complain about that. We just told you that.
Yeah. Also, we're still accepting Bitcoin as long as Bitcoin exists. This is weird.
It's still a way to spend certain kinds of money and get physical goods in return, so you should use it.
Yeah. So I think it hit 1,000 today again.
Great.
Yeah.
It's worth that. Your numbers are worth a lot. Use those numbers to get electronics that you can make stuff with.
Okay. So let's do some introductions real quick. Alicia, who are you and what do you do?
Yeah, so my name is Alicia Gibb, and currently I am the Executive Director of the Open Source Hardware Association. The Open Source Hardware Association is basically sort of an umbrella organization to take care of a lot of the paperwork and legal side and education side of open source hardware. So we try to educate the community and the public about the benefits of open source hardware, why they should be using it, why they should be purchasing it, why they should be building it. And then we also branch over into more of the humanitarian aspects of open source hardware, and we try to help out other nonprofits that are building open source hardware.
Do you guys have like a home for wayward open source hardware engineers or something? That sounds like you had
We should. That'd be
so
great.
cool if you had like an orphanage.
Like a little, yeah, like
All these engineers running around.
yeah, with like little robots running around, and like, oh, I can't.
Okay, sorry, continue.
Okay, so that's kind of the association. What we do is we try to be the voice of the community, and so we don't necessarily like set any sort of standards, or we didn't write the definition, but the community that has written the definition, we have it up for, we host it on our website, and then we host all the translations that come in, and we host email lists so people can discuss things about it, and we also really try to answer questions about open source hardware, and so we end up getting a lot of questions, and if we get enough questions about one topic, like for example legal IP stuff, we end up having conversations with the EFF on the community's behalf, with various lawyers, like Public Knowledge is a great ally of ours, and then we kind of bring back what we've learned from those people to the community and try to educate everybody in that realm and make the world a better place for open source hardware.
Okay.
We're going to drill into this a lot. I want to talk about the Foundation, the Summit.
That was a good introduction.
Yeah.
You did that in one breath too. You really practiced.
You've been doing this. I can
tell.
All right.
You're like I can do this in a 3-floor elevator ride.
I've been timed.
Who are you and what do you do?
My intro is not nearly as good as Alicia's. Founder and CEO of SparkFun Electronics. As you were kind to mention, we just had our 11-year anniversary. And happy to be here in New York visiting Adafruit. This is amazing to see where everything happens.
Yeah,
This is cool because you have no responsibility for any of this. You're just like,
Yeah.
this is cool. Like I don't feel like, hey,
Well,
why is it on that desk? Why is it over
yeah.
there?
Well, we'll talk about
What are
this
you
soon.
doing? Like, you don't have to, you know, you have to
the
be
companies
positive.
are similar in lots of ways. Shared values about open source hardware. I think similar products or some overlap and stuff. But we're all doing our inventory day today too.
Yeah.
So that was,
It is
that was kind
inventory
of
day.
fun. So
We all have the
Everything
same
has little
business problems.
stickers.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's first take care of a couple things. Lady Ada, what was on the show and tell?
Okay, let's go through the show and tell. Give me the show and tell sheet.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, first up, we had Tony DeCola who showed up. He's always doing Internet of things. And then today he showed off his cool Bitcoin Pay gumball machine. So you can, there's a little gumball machine with a mason jar and a servo that rotates to let gumballs, or it looks like M&M's actually, or Skittles, to me. And what you do is there's a QR code and you can send it Bitcoins to its address, and when it detects that you sent like 0.0006 Bitcoin, it will let you have a gumball, and he's powered by Raspberry Pi, and he's using blockchain.info, and he's like, hey, I might be able to do this with an Arduino. So that's cool. I can't wait to buy gumballs with virtual currency. Phil B, Paint Your Dragon, showed up. He had his cool Pi camera, Internet of Things Pi camera. He's been using our Pi TFT and a Raspberry Pi and a battery pack to make a Dropbox camera. And this camera is really cool because actually in the chipset for the camera controller itself has all these filters built in, like all like the Instagram-y filters that like sketchy and like toy and like monochrome. So you can actually set the filters and then you can save it to your Dropbox automatically. You can configure it with the Dropbox. This is actually like the most open source camera. And like it's actually a camera, like it's an HD camera. You can take like videos or stills at like really high quality using the Raspberry Pi, and there's a little touchscreen, and it's nice, and it probably lasts like 2 hours on battery. But still, it's awesome. And then Christoph showed up with his first microcontroller project. He made a
Amazing.
decorative table lamp, and it's a really cool. That was actually a very original idea.
Yeah.
So most people make like a glowy, blinky thing, but what he did is used a NeoPixel ring and a Flora, which is like an Arduino. And they're both round, so they fit inside this round tube. And then he used a distance sensor, and then you set the color and probably also the brightness with your hand, and then you hold it, and then that saves the color to the lamp. And so you can set, you don't have to use buttons or anything. You just put your hand over it to set the color.
I can't believe that was his first microcontroller project. That was a really cool project.
We have made it really, really easy
Yeah.
to do microcontroller projects. Like,
Yeah.
By the way, like it's no longer like 16 hours later, you're like, how do I set the UART up? It's pretty damn easy to do stuff these days with Arduino and
Yeah, I like that.
libraries,
And
which is
you
great.
got a 3D printed thing.
Oh yeah,
as
there's
well.
a 3D printed
Yeah, that's
bottom.
cool.
So it's cool.
Nice
So
combination
And he had
of
like
products.
clear crystal and like diffused like soft effect. So I don't know, he had two different styles. And then Scott showed up. John was next. John W. came back and showed off his OLED watch he's been working on for a while. He's been making an Arduino compatible open source watch. And it's really sweet. It's got like really great graphics. It's got this little like I think 1.3 inch OLED screen and like some Arduino type chip inside of it. And he's got graphics, and it's got his high school schedule, and he's put it into a little armband that was used for an iPod 6, which looks really good. And altogether, it's a pretty sweet open source hardware watch. You have to see the video because it's hard to describe how cool it looks in person. He's been doing some really great electronic stuff, and he said he's the life of the party now, literally. Scott showed up first time on the show and tell, but he had 3 awesome projects. First up, he made a mover to track the local bus in his town. It's called the Mover because it's in Vermont, and everything is a cow pun in Vermont. I've been to Vermont, so it's true. I agree. And it's got this like beautiful display, and it has a countdown, and he uses it for his kids, so he can tell the kids, you have to put your shoes on because the mover's going to be here in 5 minutes, and they can actually see it says 5 minutes. He used a Chronodot, an Arduino Pro Mega, a VS1053 MP3 board, and it makes sounds like the mover is showing, or it makes some sounds. An amplifier board. He also made a really sweet hot tub controller with a display and some waterproof buttons, and it was really nice. And like, I agree, like if you have a hot tub, like I've seen hot tub controllers, and they're usually like really basic. This was like a pretty sweet hot tub control. And then you could flip the display, very nice. And then he also laser cut some electronic storage boxes, which is, they looked really sweet, but he said his desk is somehow still a mess. So all these people, congratulations for showing off your cool projects. You win a as seen on the show and tell sticker.
It's not actually not win. They've earned it. So
Earned.
if you were on the show and tell, email support@adafruit.com. Don't forget to watch the show and tell. It's posted right now, right after the show. Lady, how do they get on the show?
Getting
And tell.
onto the show and tell is super easy. Go to our Google Plus page at plus.google.com/plus Adafruit and look for the post where I say comment here to get added to the show and tell circle. Comment there and say, hey, I've got a really cool project. I want to show it on the show and tell. I am not a spammer. And we will add you to the circle. Yeah, there's a lot of spammers. And then every week at 9:30 p.m. Eastern Time on Saturday, you will get invited to the awesomest engineer party on planet Earth.
I think it's right now it's the longest running live show and tell.
It's
on the
also the
internet.
coolest.
Yeah, we get to say all these weird things. So, like, there's no other person who wants to do like live electronic shows like all the time. SparkFun's the only other one right now, live electronics. So we were like, oh, the longest running live electronics show because like
Nice.
no one wants to do it. And then for Becky with her wearable show, it's like the longest running wearable show. We only started in August. Just like no one.
Do you have a badge for that yet?
No. People say you should. Well, we have the mugs. That's about it. But that's funny because it's like
Well, when we started Asking Jerry, actually, there were a couple other.
there was a lot
There
of
was
shows.
a couple other shows that started all at the same time.
Yeah,
And
and-
people were like, we're totally going to do a weekly, like, 1 hour show. It's, like, it's actually really hard, guys. And then, like, a month later, they just all kind of like, that's really hard.
It's pretty rough doing this every week. But we like it.
But
So-
we're like that.
all right.
We will take up the challenge. Anyways, do that and then show up on the show and tell. You can show up as many times as you want. And you get as many stickers as you want as well. You have to show up a new project every time.
Okay. I want to jump into the interviews with Alicia and Nate, but first I want to do our big announcement for we're only doing a little bit of Adafruit news and then new products that aren't even on our site. Well, this is, but it's on. Oh, you'll understand soon. We have our big launch this week. This is Moe's Resistance, and Moe's Resistance is our new game. It is to help kids learn resistor codes. So how did you guys learn resistor codes? Did you memorize like words, or did you just do it a bunch of times? Like how did you eventually figure out like what the red was or the white was or the black was?
I'm not gonna lie. I still use either a pair of tweezers, the measurement tweezers, or just use online calculators. So many of the resistors that we use are surface mount, so you can just kind of read
Oh,
the
yeah,
value
the
right
surface
there.
mount.
So.
Boy, do
That is nice about surface mount.
Boy, do I have a game for you. So this
Excellent.
is our,
I need to learn it.
Yeah, so this is our game, and we wanted to have something that's kind of addictive for kids, like Candy Crush or like Angry Birds, but make it educational.
Not just for kids.
Imagine if you learn skills. So we just launched this. It's Moe's Resistance. Moe is one of our puppets and characters here, and the blue smoke monster will come along if you get it wrong. You just have to guess the resistor values, and it's for iPad and iOS. We'll probably do something for Android, and when you build it, you actually make a.
There's a quest mode.
Yeah, you
We
actually
can't say what it is.
you actually build something when it's all done.
We can't tell you what it is.
yeah.
We have to win.
Very cool.
Yeah.
By building the 5 circuits, and they get progressively harder with more resistors, and you get less time per
Yeah.
resistor. But if you can do, and it's challenging. Like I didn't get it. It took me a couple tries to get all the way to the end. But once you get to the end, you
Yeah.
get a really cool prize. Like it's worth
So
it.
this took us about a year, and we're selling it for 99 cents in the App Store, but there's a 99-cent off code for Adafruit, so it's free. I mean, that's what we roll that way. Here's us. We were filming last week. I kind of did a preview. We did the puppetry here and the voices.
That's Tom. Tom is from Maine,
Yeah, Tom's from Maine,
so
and he does a pirate voice.
He can do a pirate voice.
Yeah.
That's part of the thing. If you're from Maine, you're just sort of
And
salty.
that's Adabot and Cappy, and that's the puppets here. Did they make you operate the puppets at SparkFun? Do you have puppets that you have to do in front of
We
things?
don't have puppets. No,
Okay.
no.
Would they make you do the puppet? You should turn the octopus into a puppet. You have the
Ludus.
you
Yeah.
should make, but then you need like 8 operators because there's the
It's
like,
a tough
Tentacles.
one.
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, you can have like one, but
I am
it's-
not
it's
doing
tough.
an octopus puppet. Do not ask.
It's hard enough. You have the 3
You're gonna
LEDs.
be like octocoupler or something like
You
that.
could have guest stars on your puppet show.
Yeah.
That'd be
We have,
awesome.
we have 3 LEDs.
All right.
And
Okay, so we have a
hands.
short video that we're gonna
Okay,
watch.
Play this video.
This is Moe. Moe. There he is. Moe is a resistor who needs your help to complete circuits.
No, I don't.
Actually, yes. Yes, you do.
I do?
You can't change your resistance on your own, can you?
I guess I could use a little help.
Right then. Cue the iPad. Set Moe's resistance to the correct values to complete each circuit. But be careful. An incorrect value will unleash the dreaded blue smoke monster. Trust me, you don't want to do that.
Or play with a friend as you race against time in versus mode.
Excellent.
Nice work, Adabot. Now, it's your turn to set Mo's resistance.
Right on.
Okie dokie. So that's Mo's Resistance. Check it out.
It's the best way to learn resistor values.
So it's fun. It's for kids, and it's basically free. All right. So now on to the fun. All about open source hardware. We're all open source hardware people here.
Yay.
It's like the biggest collection of like open source hardware stuff, besides the summit right now.
Yeah.
So
mini summit right
I
now.
wanted to start off with asking, what is open source hardware? And first, Alicia, what it is, and kind of the foundation and like more of this thing, and then what is open source hardware for you, Nate, at SparkFun? Cool. That's probably the same answer, but they're probably a little different too, because you're a business and you're a foundation. So what's open source hardware? If I didn't know anything about it.
So open source hardware is basically when you have built something out of atoms rather than bits. So it's not just electronics, but it's all different kinds of hardware, including like 3D printing, which I think we're going to talk about later. Farm equipment, which some people build open source. Fashion, bio stuff, all kinds of different things. And it's when they choose to, rather than get a patent or not share with the world how they've built it, they choose to share with the world how they've built it. So that might come in the form of schematics or Gerbers or whatever your source files happen to be. So however you've made your product or project, you basically share that with the world, and you say, hey, this is how I've done it, here's how you assemble it, here's everything you need to know about it to rebuild it, remanufacture it, resell it, whatever. So it's kind of this open reins for a different IP structure rather than the patent system. And it's kind of, we consider it a different option in the IP landscape that you can choose to use or not use.
Okay. And for open source hardware for a business, for a company like SparkFun, what is open source for you guys?
It's pretty much everything Alicia listed. We have the GitHub repos for all of our products that we build in-house. The difference from a business perspective is really like an impetus to innovate. If people can grab your repo and copy it, they can sort of replicate your product. And so why buy from SparkFun? Well, they buy from SparkFun because we should have the latest, the greatest, where it forces us to innovate.
Gotcha.
So from a business perspective, we use open source because it makes us kind of a better business.
Gotcha. Because if someone just makes a copy, maybe it'll make updates and changes. You'll be like, oh, that's a pretty good idea.
Yeah.
And then you add it to your product. And then you're like, okay, now we've got a better version.
Does that happen often?
The best example I can give, I think everybody knows Seed Studio.
Yeah.
So way back in the day, we've released the FIO, which is this little Arduino development board. It's an Arduino derivative. And Seed Studio picked it up, and they found better switches. They did some modifications. They actually made the board better. And we said, wow, they're doing really good stuff. So we took the improvements they made and rolled it back into the product that we were selling as well.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
The power of open source.
Okay. And so open source has been going on for a while, and eventually, because I'm old, I've been around for a while, eventually, because it came up, I think, even back in like Bunny's days, because I think he's kind of like the godfather of a lot of this. A lot of us all started talking about it, and then what happens when a bunch of open source people talk about things, eventually they start a foundation. So what is the Open Source Hardware Association, Alicia?
Yeah, so the Open Source Hardware Association, or OSHWA, as we call it. It's so right now we're basically a web presence. So oshwa.org is our URL, and you can go there and you can learn about what open source is. So we have a little video that you can watch. There's also like definitions of exactly what open source hardware is according to the community. It's been translated, and then we realized sometimes in some parts, like some of the definitions were kind of sticky, or people had questions about the definition. So then we created a best practices, also communally written, to sort of as a guide of like how to exactly use the definition. So even though there's a definition out there that says, hey, you have to post your source files, people still come to us all the time and they say, how exactly do I do that? And what is considered my source if I'm working on this type of project and things? And so we have to make it really clear to people exactly how however they would make their product or project, they have to put all the files up so that it can be remade and so that people can learn from it and people can, go on and make derivatives and make better things out of it.
Yeah, and with the Open Source Hardware Association, which is very tied to the definition, because this started on like mailing lists and there was a summit. I spent time on it. Lamar spent time on it. You spent time on it. Everyone spent time on it, trying to describe what this thing is, what we're doing. The definition is, I think, our goal. Like, this is what it is. And then what people always say is, well, what license do I put it under? And this is the tricky part.
Yes.
Because hardware is very different than software when it comes to the law, when it comes to lots of things. Open source software gets copyrights.
Right. And you get
hardware
that automatically.
doesn't. Yeah, hardware doesn't have the same thing. So if right now, I would say still maybe traditionally it's Creative Commons share-alike attribution for hardware. It seems to be the only thing we had at the time, and it seems to be what's going on.
Yeah.
Is there? And I know there's two other things that are happening. There's Tapper, and there's the CERN.
And there's also the SolderPad license, which is
SolderPad. Oh yeah,
an
yeah.
Apache-based-
This is Apache one.
Yeah.
Yeah. I forgot the guy's name. Alex. No, I forgot his name. He's on the mailing list a lot.
Yeah.
So there's those three.
Yeah.
So what are the differences in the licenses, or why even have a license?
Sure. So actually, that's a really interesting question that we're discussing a lot around, and we actually, so none of the people necessarily doing open source hardware. A lot of you guys are like, inventors and innovators and entrepreneurs and not lawyers basically. So we ended up getting a bunch of lawyers together. Including Jason Schultz, who is creating the defensive patent license, and so it's an actual license that locks you into a defensive patent. We had Julie Samuels with the EFF, and she's the Mark Cuban Chair to Eliminate Stupid Patents, and Michael Weinberg from Public Knowledge, and there was a few other lawyers in the room as well. But we got everybody together, and we said, hey, we don't exactly know how to interpret these things. Can you guys help us out? And so basically, one of the issues is exactly that there's nothing to hook, unless you have a patent to hook a license on. In hardware, there's not really a hook that you can use. And so a lot of people do put it under Creative Commons, and that does protect the schematics and the design files and things. But we don't want to make people feel safe that they're actually protecting their hardware, because people could come along and build the exact same hardware off your schematic, and that's not protected by copyright or by Creative Commons.
Yeah.
And so then, and this is like, a known problem, right? And so these other groups came along and said, hey, well, hopefully maybe we can, there's this definition that the community abides by. Maybe we can start turning that into a license. And it's still a little bit sticky because, we're not exactly sure, like, what sort of legal ramifications it's hooked on.
Yeah.
So you might
It could backfire, too.
It could backfire,
Yeah,
exactly.
that's the tricky part,
Yeah.
because, okay, you could protect it. That means, so the patent system kind of backfired.
Right,
You know?
right.
Yeah.
That didn't
Yes.
exactly work. Copyrights are getting
Right.
extended forever.
Right.
Whoops.
Yeah.
Like, do we really want to make it so no one can make hardware?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So-
and that's something that's actually like really awesome that all the lawyers are very mindful of. So one of the most interesting things in sort of this legal process of like having a bunch of inventors and innovators thinking about like the law is that we sort of like wanted to do this like licensing and whatnot, and the lawyers actually had to come in and remind us and say, remember that right now it's not actually like illegal to like open up your hardware. It's not illegal to unscrew. You might void a warranty, but there's nothing like that you're going to, patent-wise, that you're going to get in trouble for like, unscrewing something and resoldering something and doing something else. That's just like, if you own the device, if you bought it, then you can, open it up and check it out and learn from it and whatnot. And that might not be easy to learn from, but
Yeah.
So they kind of had to remind us that like anything that we were setting in these licenses was actually more a way of closing down hardware than leaving
Yeah.
it completely open and just saying, hey, here's my license. So like even asking for attribution, which I think everybody wants in open source hardware, and it's a nice thing to give people attribution when you've made something and then you want to create something else off of it. You should say, hey, I originally, did this from this person. And, but that is like, from a legal perspective, that is like a way of closing something off, even though we all kind of have discussed that it's, a good thing and that we want this within our community.
Yeah,
So
we have our
these are
definition.
these are like more requests.
Right.
Yeah, the definition
Or,
kind of says this is like what we'd like you to do.
This is
Right.
sort of showing the intent.
Yes. But the interesting thing about the definition is, so in its form right now, because there's so on the wiki page that it lives on, there's a bunch of signatures and a bunch of people have signed it, and then along with the logo that we have, the open source hardware logo that people can put on their boards, it creates a little bit of a social contract, and that social contract is potentially more bonding than any of the licenses that have come about. I mean, we won't know until something goes to court. We won't really know how it works.
Yeah. So for licenses, SparkFun puts
We
hardware under.
Creative Commons on all the schematic, and then kind of public domain on all the source code.
Gotcha.
So it's kind of out there. The SparkFun, I've been participating in some of these conversations that Alicia has been leading, but that's why SparkFun likes Oshawa so much. It's kind of like Adafruit. I just want to go build stuff
Yeah.
and rely on the association to handle and have the talks and the thoughts and the hard discussions about the complexities of what's going on.
We kind of declared can't do events and foundation stuff bankruptcy. We're just like, I got no time for that. I got an Adafruit over here.
Yeah.
So it's the same thing. Like the Open Source Hardware Association has the potential to educate and get the word out and tell people if there's value in open source hardware, if what it is, and how it could be possibilities for protection. So just again, because I wanted to have the basics, because this is a really good one to send a link to people. So if you do want to protect something, you have copyright.
Yep.
So you could your text, your source code is
Right.
copyrighted,
Yep.
and then you get to play with things like licensing GPL. If someone takes your GPL code and they don't put it back, you have a copyright, and you could say, "Oh, can't do that." Trademarks we have,
Yep.
so we can put our trademarks on board. So the SparkFun logo, you can't make a board with the SparkFun logo.
That's right.
You can't do that.
And trademark is kind of the only IP. So there's three kinds of IP: the patents, the trademarks, and the copyright. And trademark is kind of the only IP that is considered to be a protection for the consumer, which I think is really awesome because protecting consumers is a good thing. And it's also the only thing that we really roll with in terms of IP in the open source hardware community. So we think trademarks are really important. And we think that people shouldn't walk all over other people's trademarks.
Because it just causes confusion.
Right. It just causes confusion for the consumer, and that's not good.
Yeah, and so in the world of open source hardware, I think it's safe to say still that Arduino is the most prolific and most distributed piece of open source
I
hardware.
always call
Most
them my
well-known.
poster child.
Yeah, right. And they have an interesting challenge because I think the Arduino, it's a trademark name, but it really got used in a lot of places. And so there's things.
It's quickly becoming Kleenex.
Yeah,
It's
if-
like, tell me about your Arduino project. Oh, here's this thing, and
So-
it's not an Arduino.
And it's like an STM32, and you're like, what the hell
Yeah.
is going on
Yeah.
here?
So
Is this like a really weird definition of Arduino?
The other thing is Arduino's popularity rose. There was counterfeits, so people actually making boards that say Arduino on it, using the logo, claiming to be Arduino, and that caused a lot of problems. And I think it's been one of the things that the Arduino team probably sees more often than we do. But that is one of the things when people say, well, open source hardware didn't work out for, say, Arduino because there's clones. Well, the people who clone the stuff, they didn't respect anything anyways. They put the logo on the board. It had nothing to do with Arduino. You can go down Canal Street. There's things that have the
Right.
Apple logo on it,
Yep.
and the Louis Vuitton logo. Those weren't
Yeah,
open
you
source.
can't. Right, yeah.
So it's always one of those things where people always want protections. And okay, well, there'll be patent, trademark, and copyright. Well, if someone wants to do something bad, they're still going to do something
Yes.
bad. And that's,
They-
They,
And that's
they weren't
absolutely
copied
true.
because they were open. They were copied because they were successful.
yeah, piracy is the taxation on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's also, we like to remind ourselves of what's an open source problem and what's a business problem.
Yeah.
And that
Yeah.
goes in the bucket of business problems that happens to closed source companies too.
Okay, so next up, because there was a foundation, there was all this open source stuff, eventually there was an open source hardware summit. So you are, is it co-chair? Is it, or is it end of chairing?
I don't actually do anything.
No
with
more
the
chairs
Open
for you.
Hardware
Okay.
Summit anymore.
All right.
I think I
You did 3.
Yeah, and I
Yeah.
talked to you, I think, at one point. We talked about losing days of our lives, when you were doing Maker Faire and stuff. And
Yeah.
it was and we were like, oh my god, we lost time off our life from running this conference.
Running an event is so
really
important,
stressful.
and you commit to all of it. And
Yeah.
and it's a blur during it,
Yes.
and it's just
Yes.
it's a big deal.
So thank you for all the co-chairs who have taken over and run it fabulously. fabulously.
Yeah.
Haha, suckers.
Who were the co-chairs last year, and who are the co-chairs this year?
So last year, Jimmy Rogers and Addie Wagenknecht were the co-chairs, and this year Addie once again is staying on, and Simone Cicero over in Italy is co-chairing, and we're hoping that it is going to either be in Barcelona or in Vienna. They're still working out
Oh
some
wow,
of the
First
details.
international one.
Yeah.
It'll be the first
International.
international one, which from day one we have been getting asked to have an open source hardware summit in Europe.
The Maker Faire Rome was huge.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
Like, there was like a couple, like dozen thousand users.
Yeah.
It was like 30,000 people or something.
There's a lot of open source hardware
Yeah.
going on in Europe, so it's incredible.
Maker Faire hit 500,000 people total in 2013, if the numbers that I saw were right. So
Incredible.
500,000 people worldwide. That's intense. And then the Open Source Hardware Summit, excellent collection of people showing off open source hardware. It was at MIT.
Yep.
We
This
were
past
there.
year was
It
at
was a lot of
MIT.
fun.
Yeah.
Our
We had
Becky Stern talked.
We had 500 people this year, and
Wow.
so every year the problem is like how many can we handle? How much can we pay forward on the catering bill to like allow people to sign up for tickets, and how much can the theater hold and all that kind of stuff. So
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. We're going to keep doing this. We're going to keep doing it. Okay, it's SparkFun time.
Okay.
All right.
Yay.
So,
Your time's not up.
Yeah.
You get a talking break.
Well, this is last time the SparkFun folks were on not too long ago. I said it's a historic show, and here's a photo. We had Trevor, Pierce, Pete, and Dia out. That was not too long ago.
Yeah.
They were
wow, you
here.
remember their name?
Yeah,
I was like, I don't remember.
I am excellent with names, except
good
for the
with
guy
names.
who did SolderPad licensing.
Pretty good.
Andrew
Very
Katz.
good.
Cats, I know. It's because I haven't met him. Once I meet someone and see their face, I always
it.
know their name, but I've
That's
never
true.
met him in person. Yeah,
I'm terrible with
he's a mailing list guy.
But I can do resistor color cuts.
Yeah, you can do that.
I can do that. I'm down with that.
So a little bit of history about SparkFun. You started it 11 years ago.
Started 11 years ago. I was a junior at the University of Colorado, electrical engineering student trying to build stuff in my bedroom. And I don't know if you guys remember the state of electronics in 2002, but it looked like DigiKey and a couple other companies had sent their catalog through a bandsaw and put it online.
Yeah.
Right? It was really, really bad.
No, I used to have to. I spec stuff for like my thesis, and it's like, there were like now there's like photos on every DigiKey item. This is like totally new. Like back then there was nothing. Like you just had to like scour the data sheet to find out what. I would get the wrong package
I
all
got
the
the
time.
wrong package all the time.
All
yeah.
the time.
So I said, I'm going to take a photo of stuff next to a quarter. And that, I mean, maybe the back of it. And look at, back then, the back of electronics was ugly to companies. They didn't want to
Yeah.
show you what, but to hackers and people building stuff, you needed to know that
Yeah.
information.
No schematics.
Oh, yeah.
No files. It was a completely different
Yeah, it's
world.
pretty bad
I
too.
had to fax orders into places in Canada and Bulgaria.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
So in 2003, started the website and have been shipping boxes ever since.
Gotcha. And I know you from when we would email. So I would do a post on Make about SparkFun's new products every Friday, I think.
Wow. Yeah, I had
Yeah.
forgotten that. And you got a rotary phone.
I had a
Long
rotary
time
phone,
ago, yeah.
and when people would ask, what is this maker movement thing, I actually showed the rotary phone because it was a combination of microcontrollers and this old thing, and they got it, and I would have the phone ring and everything.
Their head would explode.
Yeah, they were just like, oh, now I get it, because
Yeah, I think we did a talk, and you purposely put it on there, and then like you called it.
I put
Like,
my phone number up on
and
the
then like
screen.
you use a
yeah.
cell phone and like
Yeah.
would call, so we would like pick it up.
Yeah.
Like people wouldn't believe it. They're like, it's just a prop.
Yeah, and that's I think I started Hackaday. I was at Popular Science. I started Hackaday, and then Dale told me about this crazy idea. He was going to do this thing. It was going to be a print magazine. I thought that was a horrible idea. Sign me up. I said, this is a dumb idea. Print magazine. And it was like 2005 or whatever. I remember I just said I want to do the blog. I want to have, because I love doing Hackaday, where it was like a weird Hackaday. People said, oh, there's no way you're going to get a project a day. Right, now there's like a billion projects. And then at Make, I remember saying, wow, this SparkFun company is putting out these breakout boards that they're finally able to start doing stuff with electronics. It was taking some of the complexity of putting a surface mount component onto a breadboard. And it was very helpful. So it was neat. So you're in Boulder, Colorado. How many peoples are you?
We've got about 155.
Wow.
The last check was 43 dogs and 2 kegerators. So
Yeah.
things are going really well. According to the numbers, we are the second largest kennel in Boulder County. if we
You
were
actually
so
count as a
inclined.
kennel
Yeah,
now?
it's kind of weird. Well, just if
a
we
weird
actually
service.
rented out
All right.
the
Okay.
space, but we
so
don't do
so
that.
we're 63 people. We had one cat when we were allowed to have a cat. We have two.
Another guy's at home.
We have two kegerators. One's root beer and one is.
They have two options.
Yeah.
Nice.
And one
One
is
beer,
beer.
one-
And if you go to.
But they're not. Are they full kegs? They're half kegs, right?
One is the root beer one is a smaller one.
Yeah, it's a little.
And
bit.
so we have Kegamatic on Twitter. So what I thought would be funny, I didn't talk to you about this before the show, but what I thought would be funny is you should have your keg tweet our keg and we should have
awesome.
ours tweet yours. It's like cheers, or like we should get all
that's
the,
really
we
If
should get
it's within like 5 minutes,
we should
there
get
be, like,
we should get
clink.
all the hardware companies to
I
have
love it.
tweeting kegs, and they can and eventually they'll all tweet, because I hate the science fiction future where the machines take over and it's Terminator stuff. I want all the machines drinking. Right?
If they're
That's
drunk,
what-
they're
that's
not
what-
friendly.
robot-
Right.
So
They're just like watching Robot Chicken and like
yeah.
drinking.
We had our keg
great.
on Twitter for a while, and I knew it was bad when it started to have more followers than I did. I was like, wow, there's something wrong.
Yeah, but everyone loves
I
it.
know.
Look, the internet's broken. We're gonna start KegNet. They're gonna start tweeting, and we should do it. So, anyways, it's a
Excellent idea.
challenge to your dev
Excellent idea.
team. We'll
Very
try
good.
and talk
Love
dev
it.
team. All right. So one of the things I want to talk about, because we've been going through some growth spurts, and we always kind of look at SparkFun as like the older brother. I guess I don't know that's been out there long. You're 10 years, 11 years old now, which is like 50 in internet years. So
Do you still get asked if you're a startup? Do you still get asked if this is your full-time job?
Until Lamore got Entrepreneur of the Year, like no one even thought she was an entrepreneur. Like it's like, oh, you do this at your kitchen table? Like they didn't no idea.
Like actually, some people thought like, oh, the store is just stuff she sells is left over from projects she makes.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I'd buy like 10 resistors, and I would
Progress,
put, like, I'd
progress
use
has
one,
been made.
and I'd, like,
Progress
sell
has been
9.
made. Yeah. Well, actually, before I go about, let me bounce back. Here's some other things. So, SparkFun is not venture funded. Adafruit is not venture funded.
Correct.
That's a big deal in our world right now.
Most companies are.
Most companies are.
The vast majority are.
And when you do, things change. That's the observation I think. When you take money and you have to go public or sell your company, things change. They don't have to, but they do. That's what I've seen. So it's cool. When Trevor was on, I asked about this. Why didn't you take funding? And he's like, well, we didn't need it. We grew it. We grew the business
Organically, we bootstrapped it. Yep.
And we did the same thing. We were in an apartment until last year, and now we're in a factory. And so, speaking of, so we had to get multiple floors here and everything. We had to do a build out. When you were here last, it was an empty box.
Yeah.
And now there's a build out, and I got gray hair. So you're getting a 4.3 acre facility, 80,000 square feet, and you're building this right now.
Yep, it's right across the street from IBM. It's about a mile and a half north of Boulder. We're in Boulder County.
Okay.
Yeah, this was one of the last.
So it's
big
only a
projects.
mile and a half?
North of where we are now.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, north
like-
of a place
I was
called
like-
Gun Barrel.
I'm like, that's in Boulder. Okay, so
Okay.
that's pretty close, right?
So, and how long do you think until you move into this facility?
The wild thing is, if you look and believe the charts that the general contractor is giving us, they claim that we will have something called a certificate of occupancy in July.
Yeah. Okay.
That's not even
I've
6 months from now.
I've heard
It's
all
like
that too, by the way. Like we had to do get it.
Well, I mean,
it's all good. No,
that could just mean like it won't rain on you if you stand
Right.
inside.
Yeah.
I don't know.
This is ready to move in.
okay.
Really?
This is walls, roof,
Okay.
everything completely done in 6 months. So
Is it 2-story or 1-story?
Two
No, we're gonna get to that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So this is the
Some
the,
places
the
are like
plans.
has to be one
So
floor.
80,000 square feet.
Yep.
2 floors.
Yep.
And how did you decide to figure out which goes on what floor? Because I just had to figure this out.
It was pretty simple. Inventory is heavy and bulky, so you don't want to move that multiple floors. So all the inventory is on the bottom floor,
Okay.
and all the offices. And
So it's 40,000, but then 2 stories, so it's 80,000 square feet total.
Correct.
Okay, not just
Yep.
80,000 and then like 106,000. That's a lot.
Correct. Yeah,
And-
40,000 bottom floor. We have about an 18-foot head height. So I'm wondering what your ceilings are here, but that's
This is
really tall.
12,
12.
Yeah.
So
I
that
believe.
gives us the ability to stack 2 pallets on top of each other.
more than 12, maybe 15.
Okay.
But there's venting and light, so you can't actually
yeah.
get to the top.
Right.
Our clear head height is 18 feet.
Okay.
Yeah,
so you went
so-
up.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, we had to
it's
go
tall.
up just because like it's New York, so you have to go up.
Right.
So here's a biz question. Why not just go find a building that's already built?
We looked around Boulder County. We wanted to stay in Boulder County because of our workforce. We really like the people. We like the university. We find really good people in Boulder. We looked around, and there was a few buildings for sale, but they were all in pretty bad disrepair.
Okay.
So it made a lot more sense. I didn't want to do it. I wanted to stay in the building where we're at, but you can kind of see the walls moving in. Have you
Yeah.
experienced that? As things grow,
Oh,
everything
yeah.
gets a little tighter and a
Yeah.
little closer, and so we're
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
wow,
yeah.
we need to be looking 12, 18 months down the road. And so
Gotcha.
found some land, and I'm doing things as an electrical engineer. I never dreamed I'd be doing this.
Like signing leases and stuff.
Yeah.
It's like your signature matters now.
Suddenly you're like signing like
Yeah.
35 like no, to sign this lease you have to like sign like 30 documents. Like you have to initial each document, sign it, initial is not done.
So
This is just a lease. This is a rental.
here's a photo from your Flickr. So this is the progress right now. I think this was
Yeah.
taken like last week.
Yep.
And there's some Case Company, Case Logic is near you. I think that's the name of it.
Right next door is Case Logic. So if you ever bought one of those CD-ROM holders,
Yeah.
Yeah.
you know, back in the
We all-
90s, they're right next door.
We all have
They're
those.
still in
And you know
business.
what? I
They're
don't
still in
remember
business.
buying
so
one.
cool.
I just remember having one.
Yeah.
No, I definitely bought mine from Newbury Comics. And I still have it.
You did?
Yeah.
Okay. So,
There's like the big
how,
one.
how many? So you build. So if you're going to build a building, you're going to build it for growth. Like, how many people can you put into this building at 155 now? How many can you jam in there?
That's a really good question. I think according to the county, we can have about 400 people in the building.
Okay.
Wow.
That's really tight office space.
That's
cubicle
assuming it's like that's like
packing.
max occupancy.
Yes,
Not
that's
including like the pallets.
Or the robots.
correct. We're actually looking 20 or 30 years down the road. So SparkFun may outgrow this building.
Yeah.
So if the building gets turned into all office, they want to know what so if the warehouse went away, how many people could
Yeah.
you put on the bottom floor as if it were office?
Ah, yeah.
And that's like 250, 275. So both floors
Yeah.
about 450.
How many dogs can be in this new building?
No, it was actually a thing. So
there a dog
talking.
run?
We were talking to the HVAC engineers, and they were saying, "Okay, how many people did it?" And we're like 450, and okay, and we just happened to mention, and 40 dogs, and they were like, "Really?" It's like, "Yeah, that's a heat load." They had to adjust the HVAC and the air
Well,
conditioning.
they're hot animals. Like
Yeah.
panting
Yeah.
and like sweating.
Hot dogs?
Hot dogs.
Yeah, that's funny. Okay. And so the other thing that I want to talk about is it looks like you and Lamore, Nate, are on this mission. So here you are talking
Not
to...
wearing a tie. That's
here-
not my mission.
Well, no. Well, Alicia's in the background there. But you're both on a mission, and you're talking to, it looks like, congressional people. What did you do recently?
Congress. This was a couple months ago. We got a phone call that was like a Friday or Saturday.
People in Washington don't sleep.
And,
No, they
and
don't.
This is if
they
discovered.
said, "Hey, could you testify in front of Congress on Thursday of next week?" And you don't say no. And so we moved some stuff around, wrote some testimony in about 24, 48 hours, submitted that, and then went to D.C. and testified in front of the House of Representatives. It was really cool to see how democracy works. It
Yeah.
was a little messy.
No, it's interesting. They do call in a lot of people, and they like hear these stories, and that helps them hopefully
Yeah.
define these laws because they have to hear they have to hear from like the people. I mean,
Right.
it ends up being lobbyists, but like they still try.
It was cool. The previous week they had the Motion Picture Association out, and they had some really good testimony. And then they brought SparkFun, myself, and then a few other people on a panel of 5 to give them sort of the counterpoints.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Counterpoints of
I
view.
think
And-
with
oh,
all
good.
this patent reform in Washington, they're really starting to pay attention to the open source hardware community, which is awesome. So you guys have been
Yeah, Lamore talked to the
Obama,
president,
right?
And she had said patent reform
Yeah.
and like maybe kids should learn a programming language instead of a foreign language.
But also, I think they should
Yeah.
learn both.
Yeah, I tried to convince say
Yeah.
instead of.
Yeah.
I think it's important. I think it's important to learn a foreign language.
And so he was asked to do the testimony in front of the Judiciary Committee in the House, and then in Colorado, I've met with our House of Representatives, Jared Polis, and then I've met with the aide to our senator out there, Senator Bennett, and those people, came like and asked us if they could like take tours and like find out more about open source hardware, and then Gabriella, who's the president right now of the Open Source Hardware Association, and I just wrote an article for a publication that goes out to 4,000 Defense Department people, and then she was asked to come speak out there while I was here, and so it was just like
She's currently speaking in front of the Department of Defense.
right, yeah,
Wow.
and then I actually was just on We the Geeks this week as well. So whatever something
Which is a White House program. Yeah.
right, which is a
Yep.
White House
Yeah.
program, and so something has been happening in Washington around this patent reform where they've really started paying
Yeah.
attention to open source hardware and the fact that it's out there as an option for IP reform. So
Okay.
it's pretty cool.
Well, speaking of, because I'm probably going to go a little bit over 11, but I wanted to bring up one big topic that everyone is talking about, and these are like the best people to talk about. So I normally do a 3D Thursday series, and also we had a hardware hangout, and all these things kind of go together. So Chris Anderson, who was editor-in-chief of Wired, and now he's CEO of 3D Robotics, just got a round of $35 million for drones. Woof.
What would you do with 35-year-old? I don't even know. They must be going.
He has to go do a lot of manufacturing because he wants to be, he wants to have a ready to go product that you can just purchase, and it's like it comes with everything.
I would probably get more
For business to
Muppets
business.
personally, because these Muppets are really
But
expensive.
I can see how you did. I mean,
Sure.
like he has, you can watch the show, but he has also like 160 employees,
Yeah.
Yeah.
right? And,
So-
and he has to like do full on manufacturing, not just like breakout
Circuit
boards
boards,
or
yeah.
So-
circuit boards, but like injection molding, sensors, custom designs, custom motors. A lot of times, if you want to get these things done, just like getting that first few samples actually costs you like it can cost you like $20,000 to get injection molding samples. Right?
Some of their products are really nice, and I think it's approaching kind of consumer grade.
Oh no,
Yeah.
he,
So
he,
it's-
No,
was-
they're like
he said
consumer
no
grade.
soldering irons, no
Yep.
compiler. He actually
Yeah.
said that on the show.
Yep.
The other thing that he said was very interesting is he said he was disappointed by open source hardware because they didn't get the value back for 3D robotics. And this is one of the challenges, I think, for all of us who do open source hardware in the next year, because some things came up in the world of 3D printing. So Affinia and Stratasys are going to war, it seems. Just to catch folks up, Stratasys, they own MakerBot. MakerBot's part of them. And Affinia is an up-and-coming popular 3D printer. And Stratasys sent a note that said, well, not a note, it's a legal thing. It says, you're violating our patents.
Nastygram. Yeah.
Nastygram. Like, here's the patents you're violating. You got to stop these. And these
It
things
did
are
not come in a little perfumed
yeah.
envelope.
And yeah, well, Affinia said
Memo.
we think the patents are invalid, and we think you're being anti-competitive. Now the problem is these patents kind of affect all of 3D printers.
Yeah.
And so this is one of those things, because MakerBot was very open source, got its foundations in the RepRap, and then they went closed source, more closed source, and then Stratasys merged with them, and now Stratasys is trying to get these patents out there and saying we want to enforce these with Affinia. So this is I want to spend just 5 minutes on this. So this is what you're working on at the foundation, and you talk about this too. I mean, what do you think about this?
So to start off with, I always, as a foundation out in the world, we always try to make sure that we are well understood in the fact that we don't think like it's open source or absolutely nothing, right?
Yeah.
And so we understand like open source isn't for all people, and all people aren't going to want to open source their stuff, even though personally I would love it. But so it's perfectly fine that like they decided to close source their stuff and whatnot, but I really think that I really feel that the innovation that kind of happened at MakerBot, a big part of it was that it was open source and that it was innovating with this entire community around. And so I am really nervous for the 3D printing industry right now with this happening, because I feel like it's going to have a negative effect on the innovation that could have happened to 3D printing.
Yeah, I can see what Chris is saying. Maybe in the drone world there wasn't a lot of value coming in, but in the 3D printing world there was.
I would, and Chris is a good friend of mine. We've known each other for years. I need to talk to him about this, because I would argue he may have seen value from the people who was copying him. Okay, what that means is by people who are kind of replicating his stuff, he knew that he had to constantly innovate. He had to stay on his toes. If they go closed source and go quiet for 2 years, right, the drone world is going to pass them by very quickly, no matter how much VC they have.
Yeah.
So it may not be monetary value, but it may have saved their business to this point by
Yeah.
being open.
No, that's definitely true. I mean, they still are releasing
Yeah.
files, all their software.
Yeah, they're
and
still open
hardware.
sour's.
He just what he was saying was like,
Yeah.
he was
Yeah.
like,
the
I
software,
was
the
hoping-
software is
The
open
monetary
source.
value.
Yeah, the software is open source.
It's still
and-
open source, but he says he the thing that makes him sad is he's like, well, like I'm at this point in time I'm still open source, but I can see why people would not want to, because he's like, I didn't get a lot of. He's like a lot of people didn't contribute back, and I was like, well, I thought sometimes, but it's drones are so complicated.
One of the
that
biggest
it's-
misnomers in open source hardware is build it and they'll come help me.
Yeah.
Right? And that's not true. If
Yeah.
you open source something, it doesn't mean that the community will flock to you and help you make your product perfect.
There was a
Yeah.
big
It means-
company that I don't want to name that made an Arduino killer, and they said, well, we'll just release this Arduino killer and the community will come around and do all the tutorials for it. and it's dead in the water.
Yeah.
You'll never hear from this
Yeah.
Arduino.
The
And
good
we
news
all
is
know
that
which
it-
company. There's a big
The
company.
good
big
news, it
company.
could be
Like-
like 16 companies, and actually there's like so many.
There's like 16
There's
companies.
16 that could,
so
we could do the same.
here's our challenge, because this is more on the business side. So Adafruit can't find an open source 3D printer with margins for a business right now. You guys don't sell a 3D printer. Right now, we're trying to figure out what our strategy is. It's an opportunity right now. If you want to be an open source hardware company and have and sell 3D printers and have companies like SparkFun and Adafruit sell them, you need to have margins, and you need to have like a good product. There's nobody really. There's some non-commercial ones. There's some that are really close. There's a Lowesbot. I'm talking to those folks.
They're in our backyard.
And
Yep.
and so it is an opportunity. But I think our challenge is, we have to show that there's more value being open source than closing things up and then possibly having a
Right.
patent war.
You also said something really interesting when you were bringing this up, which was that they were suing them on the compete rules or whatever. So like in
Affinia said you're being anti-competitive by doing this.
anti-competitive. Yeah. So in patents you can like sue if you feel that you've accrued damages because so and so took your design and can sell it. I am really curious, and like again, totally, I'm not a lawyer, but I'm really interested to know if that claim was ever made. If some big company was trying to like tell Adafruit or SparkFun like, hey, you guys were making one of my products and it's anti-competitive because you're selling it under the price, blah 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 blah. I kind of wonder, because you're building open source hardware, if you can say actually you couldn't just take this and have it, so there's no anti-compete here.
I think there. Yeah, I think it. Well, I think you can always sue when you have a patent.
Yeah, you can always. I mean, you can always sue even when you
but
don't
I
have a
think
patent.
doing open source hardware. I mean, first off, the release of the open source hardware has nothing to do with the patent. So you can always say, well, I'm not selling it anymore. And they'll say, take down the GitHub repo, and I'm like, absolutely not, right? That the publishing of that information does not necessarily infringe.
Yeah.
You can, because the patent itself is the documentation.
You showed this with your bubble project, the frequency bubble.
Well, that
was
that's something
because
that's
it's illegal.
That's
yeah.
illegal to make, but it's not
Not
illegal to
illegal to
document.
document.
Lamar made a cell phone jammer, but she can't sell them, but she can
You
show
can't
you
sell
how to
them, you
make
can
them.
document
Right.
them. So a patent is in fact open hardware,
Exactly.
right?
Yes.
The patent itself is open hardware.
I mean, the system was created so that people would share innovation, which is sort of ironic, like you said before. It kind of ended up not being the way that people originally thought it would be.
So, this is a developing story. We don't know what we're going to do yet. We're watching. And I have a feeling, unfortunately, 3D printing is going to be a lot like Apple versus Google and all
Versus
this.
Samsung.
I think it just sucks.
Yeah.
And I think 3D printing is going to be a little bit of a drag for possibly a lot of people, including consumers, because if you're spending all this money, who's going to ultimately pay for it? So, okay, we're going to do a bunch of questions. Ask away, everybody. We're going to do a little bit of speed round. We're probably going to about 10 minutes over this guy. Here we go. Here's the first question. Is it legal to sell the same products as SparkFun by just changing the color?
You could sell it in the same color, blue, red, green, whatever color you want, as long as you take off the SparkFun flame, as long as you take off the trademark.
Yeah.
You can copy, sell, modify, do whatever you want with the
Gotcha.
files.
So they can't put the word SparkFun on there, and they can't put the flame on there.
Logo.
The only thing we ask is that people remove the logo so that no one is confused whenever they're looking at the two products.
Yeah.
Is this a Spark? Did SparkFun build this or not?
Yeah.
That's all that we ask is you take the logo off, but otherwise have at it.
Okay.
No, you can make it any color you want. There's not that many different colors for PCBs, so you kind of have to go with whatever
Rainbow.
your PCB
Make
has.
it any color you want.
There's like purple PCBs.
Okay. What special adaptations does the new SparkFun building have?
Really great question. We're currently, oddly, in Colorado, we hit groundwater. The geothermal stuff is not that interesting. We've got geothermal, we've got solar, we've got, it's nearly LEED certified, it's massively efficient.
Okay.
There's a climbing wall, there's,
You have 18-foot ceilings, you're going to climb them.
and we've actually got holes built into the floor, so in parts of the building you can see through all 38 feet of it. So the climbing wall goes up all 38 feet, and then there's some holes
I see
where you
that.
can throw paper planes down into inventory.
Is that safe?
There'll be walls. There'll be
Only paper planes.
Okay.
So people can't like step their foot into the hole. Okay.
First,
There'll be railing up.
This one's for Alicia. Can you void your patent if you open source the hardware? Like if you have a patent and you decide to give it away? as
No,
open source?
so actually, this is another tactic you potentially could do, is you could get a patent and then you could license the patent completely open source. So you could get a patent and then license it in a way that says, I open source, my entire patent to all the community for any purpose they might find. And basically, that license is on you to not then go sue the people who then create your product again.
Okay. Next up, are you going to do Free Day again? Everybody probably asks that.
Free Day is going to be different every year. I don't know if you read the post. We did Free Day in 2013, and it was an illegal lottery. So that didn't work out so well.
That's so cool. You guys are outlaws.
Read all about it. Read how not to do a Free Day if you want to hear. So Free Day 2014 is probably going to be very different this year.
Very different. It's not going to be in January, which is usually.
It's not going to be in January.
Okay.
No.
Great. Okay. Next up.
It's gonna be like free bricks.
Here's a little.
That'd be fun if you'd be like, everybody, can you just take like one bucket of dirt from this area and move to that area for free? Is it free?
This one is for all of us, but we'll answer it. If someone builds a product with your product inside, a SparkFun or an Adafruit product inside, is that okay?
That's fine.
They buy the component and puts it in.
In fact, that's always fine.
Yeah.
In the definition
You can buy
as well.
any kind of product, and you have once you've purchased it, you can use it for any purpose you want.
Yeah.
Except within the DMCA, there's like weird stupid exceptions. But other than the stupid exceptions, once you've purchased something, you can do anything with it.
We love it when people use our products in their projects or products. The thing that kind of worries us whenever they get into life safety, we've seen some people build medical devices and different things, and it's like that's
on
cool,
them
but
for-
the
Well,
warranty is a
I
little
think
iffy
they're
there.
supposed to, like, if you do life safety, they have to go to all the subcontractors and get them to sign
Okay.
documents. And if you like, I think it's kind of on them. No, their problem.
Okay. Next up, hey, Prusa from RepRap is here. He wants to know what type of margins do companies like Adafruit and SparkFun like to see if they're buying stuff.
Yeah.
40%.
Yep.
40% is on the high. When you're dealing with large items, like expensive items, it tends to dip down to 30 or 25.
Yeah.
That's considered very normal. But the problem is that since most of the end customer liability is on the seller, if we have a fraudulent order, I have to cover it. If we have someone who gets a shipment via UPS, and UPS says they delivered it, and the customer says I don't deliver it, and then they do a chargeback, we're liable. So that's why you have to have some buffer, because otherwise, like all of these ways that if it gets damaged or something, and we have to pay for it, we don't go back to the manufacturer and say, somebody didn't like this 3D printer and they returned it and we can't sell it and we want our money back. We actually don't do that. That's usually the agreement that we have with our
And let's not talk about Raspberry Pi. Yeah.
Which one?
The margin on Raspberry Pi.
Yeah, there's no margin on Raspberry Pi.
We're all selling it at cost.
Everyone sells it at cost.
Yep.
We're all okay with it.
Yeah.
It's
Funny market dynamics.
it's
Weird,
it's what happened. Somehow these things happened.
Raspberry Pi is different though because there's enough things that you have to get with it that do have margin. Whereas with a 3D printer, it's hard to sell a 3D printer at cost because first off, the Raspberry Pi is $30. If a customer doesn't get it, it's not a big deal. You can replace it for $30. But like a 3D printer, there's not a lot of other things that you buy with it. Usually, it's ready to go out of the box, and so there's no accessories. It's like buying a bicycle. You buy a bicycle, usually you have to buy all these other things with it. You have to get lights, and you have to get a bell, and you have to get a pannier or whatever.
I considered selling Raspberry Pis at cost a fun challenge. It's like, and especially, so Amazon can sell stuff at cost and do free shipping because they're publicly held and the money's just going around and around and around. But when you're a company and there's a lot of demand for something like Raspberry Pi, it's tough when there's only one price, and that's the cost price. Tough stuff. Okay, next up, we're gonna take a little bit of break from questions. We do a new product segment every week. New products,
Do you do products song?
Yeah,
New product song?
this week is a week little different. This is the first time I think in live Internet Electronic Show history. We're gonna tell you to
Which is really easy because
we're
it's like one.
We're gonna tell you to go to SparkFun site and buy some stuff. So this week on SparkFun, NeoPixels. And you can tell that these are photos from SparkFun because you guys do your stuff on white backgrounds. We do our stuff on black backgrounds. That's how you can tell.
Well, you can tell it's our board because we're rated for black.
Yeah. So NeoPixels are there, very popular. Great way. We saw one of the show and tell projects use the rings.
Rings, squares, shields,
yeah.
sticks.
If you go to
Noses.
sparkfun.com, you can see the video. I think it was called Full Tilt or something like that because they have the new Simon game.
Yep, new Friday product post on this Friday had the Simon game and demonstrated some NeoPixel stuff as well.
Okay, it's bright.
And if
out.
if these sell well, maybe they'll stock more of our stuff.
So go and buy it.
And then
From them.
so that's new products today.
Yay!
So tune in next week when we show all of the Adafruit new products that we had.
We'll
to speak
show it,
about
but we don't
in like
have
5 minutes.
time when we have guests. It's
Yeah.
hard.
That being said, let me pay a little bit more bills before I go back to the questions. OSHW is the code tonight. 11% off everything in the Adafruit store that is in stock. But go buy the NeoPixels at SmartFun. Let's go back to the questions. Okay.
Okay.
Here's one for you. Someone has an XB adapter Lemoore, and they it says to change the power setting. Change the settings. You have to power cycle or pull resistor low. Can you tell me how to do this on a breadboard? Good one for the forums.
Connect. Yeah, it's a good one for the forums. You can just connect a wire. I think in our tutorial we showed how to do it. You connect a wire from reset to ground by just plugging it to the breadboard, and then just use a little jumper wire.
Yeah. Next up, you knew this was going to come. Are you guys going to take Bitcoin? You probably get this a lot.
So SparkFun has looked into taking Bitcoin, and it was we kind of stayed away from it. Luckily, we had one of our customers who offers the service. So you can send Bitcoin to one of our customers. That customer then uses their dollars and buys SparkFun gift certificates. So we've got sort of a third-party market.
I know that guy from Russia. I do. Is he from Russia?
I don't know who it is or where they're located.
Okay,
but,
that's the beauty of Bitcoin. No, there was someone doing that, and then we decided to do it.
He's actually in Russia. Like he's actually he's like, well, I have this service, and I'm like,
yeah,
oh.
we decided to do it. It's really weird. It's worked out well. It's just
How
one of
long
those
have you been
things.
accepting Bitcoin?
A few months now.
Yeah, our peak. We started doing Bitcoin in November when the same day Bitcoin hit 1,000.
It actually took that long, and like we
Yeah.
finally had it ready, and then it was like, okay, today's the day, and it was like this crazy
Yeah.
news day, and it was like, and people were like, you did this on purpose. And we're like, no, it's actually just like web development
I'm
takes
pretty
time.
good at timing. I was not.
Yeah,
I
we
didn't plan
Has it
this
been
one.
good? Has it been bad? You
Yeah.
gonna keep doing it?
Yeah,
I mean, it's weird, but
it's so weird. It's so weird
What's weird?
because
about
it's
it?
not real. It's not real. We all agree that the thing isn't real. It's just like okay.
it also fluctuates a lot.
Yeah.
So you have to kind of like just be aware. Like you just have to manage that, and
I'll tell you as someone has to do business.
it's
so
just
the-
early. It's just
There's
early.
no chance of chargeback, which is so cool and weird.
Oh.
There's no chance of it. Once it's in your hands, it's it forever.
There's
It's
no-
actually getting cash.
There's no
interesting.
fraud or chargeback.
Well, there could be fraud, but it's just not your fault.
There's
The
fraud,
problem-
but it's like their fraud. It's
Yeah.
like somebody stole your wallet.
or
It's
this whole
nothing-
thing is a massive fraud. So that's the
I
problem.
know, but you know what? When you get cash, like you don't know where that cash came from. It could be eventually
That's
passed
true.
through like
Yeah.
some illegal dealings. You know, who knows?
Yeah. Okay. How does someone get a product on SparkFun? If they come up with something, how do they get it on your site?
We've got a tutorial that shows you how to do that. Google SparkFun selling your widget, and there's a whole process to go through.
Okay. Next up, Adafruit. What's the best way to contact you ahead of time for placing a Lauder's order Raspberry Pis? Oh, support at adafruit.com. Great. I'm glad I mentioned we don't make any money on these. So yeah, if you would like,
Yeah,
if you
it was good timing. Yep.
yeah, and there's discounts occasionally when you do buy a ton. Next up, do you still have time for engineering?
I do.
You do. How do you do that?
Lemoore, I wanted to ask you the same kind of
Ask
question.
me what's what? No,
So
wait.
the question is, how do we make enough time so that we can still continue to build?
I still actually do more engineering than ever now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I actually get to do like probably like 40 hours of engineering a week, and I only have to do like 10 to 20 hours of other stuff.
Nice.
Like Fab is running on its own very smoothly. Like inventory day, like ran very smoothly. It's like I can actually, you know, like I am still like the owner of the company. I still have to come in and do some things.
How much time
but-
do you spend engineering a week? Let's put it that way.
Probably 5 to 8 hours a week. I was working on some weather stuff, humidity sensors, that sort of thing. Just that's what I love to do. So
Yeah.
you got to make time for
How
it.
many hours do you think you spend a week on
I
engineering?
think I can spend about 40 hours a week. It's
Okay.
tough though because it's like is emailing with K-Town, which is totally awesome. Count as engineering. Like we're talking about engineering, but I'm not actually seeing their soldering. Like that's what I do a lot of is like researching spec sheets and like okay, this is what I think we should do and like making testers. Like
Yeah.
I count that as engineering. But I don't know. Other people might not.
Okay. And you-
Developing new products, I probably spend 15 hours. Like actually like
A
developing
week.
like 15 hours a week developing new products. But then testers, I spend usually 5 to 10 hours a week doing testers, and then like email takes another like
okay.
in management.
Yeah,
takes another
and you have K-Town. Kevin Townsend is your lead
K-Town.
engineer, and
K-Town.
and we
That's a
have a
sign.
couple other people that do stuff. How many people is in another question? How many people are in the SparkFun engineering department?
So Pete Doctor, Director of Engineering, has a group of 12 to 15 people. So we
Okay.
have quite a few engineers that are working on new products. So that allows me the time to do all of the business, CEO, new building stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, new building's a big deal.
Yeah, there's a lot going on.
And, but you do like can you assign people like, hey, this weather thing is cool. Can you finish this or like?
SparkFun works on a bug system, so if there's a new product idea that I come up with, I will write a ticket and propose it to the engineering team, and then if they like the idea, they'll pick it up and run with it. But no, I'm
What
not
if they don't
assigning-
like it?
I can't. They're like,
It
won't
sits.
fix.
Yeah, it won't fix.
Won't
It
fix.
sits. So the engineering team is actually in charge of all that.
Okay.
I'm out of
so
it.
they get to choose and decide. You don't get to dictate policy.
Nope.
Wow. Is there a product that you told them to do and they were like, no way, and you're like, you should have done this?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
You can tell me. Tell me what is it? Just tell me and like the 3,000 people watching. No. What is it?
Well, so actually, back in the day, Pete Doctor and I looked at the Raspberry Pi. And we looked at the Raspberry Pi and we're like, this is crazy. Why are people so into this 35? And we missed the boat. We were precisely wrong about Raspberry Pi.
Wow.
Yep.
I was totally wrong about it too, but then the changed my mind later. Actually never thought it was going to come out.
You thought it was vaporware?
Yeah.
I
thought-
totally
yeah.
thought it was not
Took
going to
a
come
long
out.
time.
And I was like, this is bullshit. And first off, I didn't realize that they were selling, everyone was going to sell it at cost. Because I was like, the math doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
So I think even on like asking Jira, I was like, it doesn't exist right now. Because people were saying like, well, you have the BeagleBone, like, well, why should I get the Raspberry Pi? And I'm like, well, the BeagleBone exists. Like, I don't have to tell you. And like, I don't know that the Raspberry Pi exists. And I was actually kind of like, I didn't think it was going to exist, but it did come out, which was quite impressive actually. Like, because I hear so much about hardware that like usually doesn't come out. Like I see a lot of like behind the scenes hardware that people are like, I'm totally going to come out with this thing, and I'm like, yeah, okay, and like it sometimes does. Sometimes
Hardware's hard.
It's really hard,
It's,
yeah.
it's hard to get it to market.
not that like some actually just take a really long time, then they come out. Not like, oh, like people can't do hardware. They can. It's a lot of times when you have a certain amount of scale, it gets harder and harder and harder the larger the scale. And so like when they're like, we're gonna have 1 million of these, and I'm like, oh my god, like do these people know what they're doing? And I don't know. And like Evan and Liz are great. So actually now that I know them, I could totally see how it was possible.
Yep.
But at the time I was like, I don't think it's gonna happen.
Okay.
But I changed my mind. I will change my mind.
Yes.
I'm a
Yes,
girl. I
as
can
we
do
have.
that. It's legal for women to do that.
So here's a quick question: if someone
Yeah.
took something from Adafruit and from SparkFun and then used the code and the hardware in a Frankenstein of things, would they have to include the licenses and the same things that came from the Adafruit and SparkFun products?
You know, I would say we get the same sort of questions. Like, you know, they looked at the SparkFun product and they kind of either started with our schematic or maybe they got the idea from it and they're mashing stuff up. I would say what is trademark? It's if you change some fraction of a percent, your
You mean copyright?
copyright. Sorry.
Yeah, I don't know. There's
I think here's the
Every
thing. I
seventh word
actually
or
noticed that
whatever,
if
but-
people feel like if they're using it whole and it's just like a project, it doesn't care. If they're the code that we have, sometimes we use GPL because we're based on something else, or we GPL'd it. There are restrictions on GPL code, but it's pretty straightforward. It's like if someone asks you for the code, you have to give it to them, and that's pretty much it.
Okay.
What I like to see is intent. So it's
Yeah.
like, hey, if you got the idea from Adafruit, you know, you got this board and you got this board from SparkFun, it would be awesome to see a little bit of attribution there. But
Yeah.
otherwise, yeah,
Usually
have
do.
at it.
Usually do. And like and usually if anyone makes a derivative of one of my designs, they're also doing open source hardware, which is how they're like it's like doesn't make sense for like Sony to come and take like, the Wave Shield. Like this doesn't make any sense. It would probably be another like open source hardware company that would base something off of it. And like the companies have made products based off of like the Wave Shield, and they put attribution and then they release a schematic, and I'm like, okay, you're done.
Here's a question. Folks want to know: are there going to be more of the live YouTube events and streams from SparkFun?
Absolutely. So SparkFun just completed their second live project build, and there's many more.
Gotcha. And that's where the person at SparkFun makes a kit start to finish.
It wasn't
live.
just a kit; it was kind of a project. So the
Okay.
last live project that we did was the party button. You know, everybody's got to build a party button. So they showed how you hit.
What's a party button?
So it's a big red button. You hit it, plays music and blinks lights.
Okay.
So you hit it.
Oh, like the
instant
auto rave
party.
thing. Yeah, I've seen. Oh, yeah, I remember. There was like a dorm party rave project or something. Like you hit
Yeah.
and like lowers the blinds and like
Dims
plays-
the lights,
Yeah, okay.
turns on the music. Yeah.
Okay. Well, thanks for going into extended mode here.
Yeah, I know, we
for
have
the
to go
last few minutes.
overtime.
So just real quick, I'm gonna pay some bills. It's 11% off for the next 51 minutes. Because we're not going to do these 11%, and like then we did like 14,
Primes.
like when we right after the
Yeah.
holiday. Like these are in 2020, it's going to be a little crazy. Because then you're going to do 20% off. But anyways, so
Well,
it's
we'll
11%
we'll
off.
deal with that.
It's
in
11%
like
off.
6 years.
11% off just for now. And don't forget to stop by SparkFun and pick up some NeoPixels.
Yes.
Excellent.
Go do that. All right. So it is trivia question time. We're going to give away a 24 NeoPixel ring. And Nate, I'm going to put you on the spot. Is there something from SparkFun you can offer up in this prize? Anything?
Prize.
Sure. Yeah, we'll throw in a SparkFun Inventors Kit.
An inventor kit. Whoa.
Yeah.
Wow.
Okay, and that comes with a red board,
Comes with a red board.
so they can
a breadboard.
use the
Yep.
the NeoPixel with the red board.
Okay, look at all these
Yeah.
free things that you get.
Okay.
You're going to get a lot of free things.
All right. So here's
ready?
yeah.
Get
What's,
ready
what
and
what
keep
are the rules?
Oh, right. If you've won a prize from the trivia quiz, you can't enter, even though these are really great prizes. Sorry, you've already won something, and it was probably really cool. So just hold on. First person to type the correct answer with spelling and all that good stuff into the chat, which chat is this? The Ustream chat?
Yeah, we're doing Ustream right now for
We
the
do the
trivia.
Ustream chat. Will win this fabulous prize. What is the question?
The question is, how many years is SparkFun celebrating being in business? We talked about this like a million times. We have
Were you
sometimes we
listening?
have some really hard ones.
This
and
one is
so
the
this
easy
one's
one.
really easy.
Because
Cool.
I don't have a lot of time.
Yeah, so someone's just going to type the number
in
in.
the answer, type in the answer, type in the answer.
There's always oh,
Okay.
Tom S M F.
Good old-
You got it. Look, 11.
I like how somebody's like 23.
Yeah.
Cool.
Okay, so Tom WSMF, you won. Tom.
Yay, 11. You can type your numbers. Good work.
Email support@adafruit.com.
You get
Nice job, Tom.
You get a ring and a SparkFun Inventor Kit, and you can make some blinky shit.
All right, congratulations. Okay, special thanks for our guest, Alicia. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you, Nate.
Thanks for having us.
This is good. We're
this was
collecting
awesome.
all of the SparkFun people on the show.
Yes.
Every time you guys come to town.
I promise we do not flay them and put them in the back room.
When are you guys coming to Colorado?
That's a good question. We would like to leave the building.
From time to time, yeah.
We would.
You should do that
We
sometimes.
would. And yeah, we'd actually like to check out SparkFun before you move to the new building.
Cool.
Because like I feel like every time there's a checkpoint, like I think you saw our previous 2 apartments or something, and it's neat to watch the companies grow.
I
and do
miss,
things.
I miss that we can't have the cat on the pick and place anymore.
I know.
That's really cute. That's kind of the saddest thing about moving to a factory. It's not cat safe.
If you ever get the chance, come to Colorado.
Do you have
we'd
cats
love
on your
to.
pick and place?
We don't have cats.
See?
We
Well,
get
we
well
might
for
put
you.
one there
We'll
for
get
you.
cats.
Yeah,
but-
that day.
It's like this poor stuffed cat is just
Kate, go to the shelter, get a cat. Put it in her pick and place. All right.
Pete's like going out and getting cat.
all right. So thank you, everyone, and we'll see you soon.
All right, see you next week.
Here
Bye.
is your moment of Zener.